Something I usually forget of. Daryna Bohdan I'll introduce. I'm the coordinator of project on PHC team enhancement. Yes, and I will lead you in the second part of the day, trying to lead you at least. So, sticking to the format, okay? Initially, we invited a person, one who has been with our project, since the very beginning, Renato Galeazzi, who knows very well what the project is about. He knows many of you already. And we actually offered him to tell a little bit about his perception and vision of PHC in Ukraine. And speaking of how to ensure that PHC teams are resilient enough. Okay, so I want us now to start with this vision, external vision, Renato's vision, who will share his ideas on PHC and CPD. Okay, colleagues, we have a recorded video, so please.
Members of the steering committee, my dear friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Renato Galeazzi. I am a Swiss medical doctor and professor of internal medicine at the University of Bern. For many years, I was head of the Department of General Internal Medicine at a big university-affiliated hospital in St. Gallen, Switzerland. I am a member of the Swiss Academy of Medical Sciences and have a long experience in training, educating medical students, medical interns, and also in the continuing professional development of medical practitioners. I have been a consultant for medical programs development since many years for the Swiss Tropical Institute, and through that I have been a consultant to the Ukrainian Medical Education Development Project since its beginning. I have been member of the teaching staff and I have followed all its activities over the existing years. I think, therefore, the project invited me to talk about a crucial cornerstone of any healthcare system, the primary health care. The primary health care is the basis of every healthcare system. It gives the first contact to a patient. It gives a comprehensive and continuous caring for the patient. It is cooperating with other parts of the healthcare system. Therefore, it must be strong, with well-trained, competent, motivated and stable teams. This will not only prevent personal burnouts, but it will boost empathic service delivery and improve the health of the patients of these institutions. What means competence? Competence means that the doctor and the nurses know what they do. That is knowledge. It means also that they do it correctly, what they are doing. Therefore, they need skills. And in a patient-centered way, that is, they have to have a certain attitude. And this trias of knowledge, skills, and attitude has to go through all stages of medical education, from the basic training at the university to the internatura level, and then throughout the professional life of a doctor and a nurse. The medical education project has been instrumental in supporting a holistic approach to this healthcare development. Their strategy is very wide-ranging, collaborating with the Ministry of Health on policy revisions, developing learning environments on all levels that I mentioned of the medical education, building of organizational capacity, and very innovative medical education project was creating spaces for peer learning and professional growth. And this is strengthening the practical clinical skills training. How did the medical project do this? First, it was cooperating, and it still is very closely cooperating with the Ministry of Health on policy revision. That has been also the reason for a study tour in Switzerland 2 years ago, where members of the Ministry of the Health Care Administration, members of the university staffs have been invited to visit the Swiss medical educational system in Basel and in St. Gallen. It is very important to see all these other countries, how they do it. There was also a study tour to Holland where they learned how these knowledge, skills and attitude trias is implemented in everyday teaching. Very early in its existing, the project has started the training of facilitators of peer groups. Peer groups learning is very important. It is fundamental to the above-mentioned stable and competent teams. Peer groups are promoting hierarchies that are flat. They give the participants the feeling of not being alone, the feeling of being accepted and respected by the managers, by colleagues, and by the patients. It is therefore really a crucial event for the continuous professional development of family doctors and medical practitioners and nurses. The project has also developed a learning environment and organizational capacity building through all levels of medical education, including the initiation of curriculum changes at collaborating universities. This will be a very important part because universities should not only teach knowledge, they should start very early to implement clinical skills teaching in its curricula. Medical students should be introduced in the skills they will need future in their professional life, even early during the university training. This is also supported by the training of clinical mentors through the MEDGIT project. Clinical mentors are very important for the clinical teaching at the university level, and then also, very, very importantly, during the internatura time at teaching hospitals and polyclinics. Interns have to be shown how to apply the skills and the knowledge that they have learned at the university in the daily practice of a doctor. Internatura, it should be a hands-on training because medical profession is not only a theory, medical profession is a practical profession where you have to work with hands, eyes, nose, and with your communication. An important part of the project's work was the training of managers at the PhD level. The project has pioneered a particularly innovative approach to transforming the healthcare management culture, something that sets it apart from a traditional management strategies. At the heart of their work is the creation of what the term says, a non-accusatory and non-punitive learning and working organization. They are building management models that view errors and for opportunities to learn and growth, and systemic improvement, and offer new continuing professional development formats, like, as I have mentioned, the peer groups, where these principles can be implemented. Therefore, the managers of the primary healthcare system are very important for the competence and the stability of the medical teams. The project has also organized teaching events like the Autumn School. The last one was a few weeks ago in Uzhhorod, where I had been invited to take part and to give a workshop. These autumn schools are important because they are attended by hundreds of staff of medical service delivering institutions, by teaching institutions, by administrators, managers, and members of the ministries. They put together a knowledge and a possibility, a platform to exchange experience, to exchange and discuss problems, and to propose solutions for the future. The project is also supporting already existing teaching events. For instance, primary healthcare professionals have organized POCUS or the Azov School and other continuous professional development events, and the MED project is supporting them. One thing that will be done in the future is to give a comprehensive learning environment at the workplace for the primary healthcare teams. This includes daily meetings discussing actual problems. It includes case discussions weekly, for instance, where the whole staff is dissecting a medical problem and learning together. It should also really, and that's important, organize and participate at peer group meetings. I have alluded to it already. That's a very important event where the stability of a team and its knowledge is increased. It should also promote that the participation in other continuing professional development meetings, especially if they are not organized by pharmaceutical companies. And I have already alluded to it, regular non-accusatory and non-punitive meetings to discuss errors, possible errors, and critical incidents within the team should be discussed openly, and nobody should be accused or punished. That is important for a stable team that is confident in its colleagues and also in the management. One goal of medical education development project is that each doctor should be a teacher, and each teacher should also be a professional in his specialty. This will promote a hands-on teaching at the university and at the internatura level for the clinical skills teaching, especially because then each doctor is teaching somebody else in daily practice in the hands-on work that he is doing on his patients. So, in summary, the medical educational project has been instrumental in supporting a holistic approach to healthcare development and healthcare training environment. Their strategy is wide-ranging collaboration with the Ministry of Health on policy revision, development of this learning environment, building organizational capacity, and perhaps most innovatively, creating spaces for peer learning and teaching and for professional growth. The project puts emphasis on expanding expertise through sharing the learning among peers and with experienced practitioners at university and clinical institutions. This reflects an expanded role of medical professions, that is, the combination of teacher, clinician, and researcher in each member of the profession, be it a medical doctor or a nurse. The goal is a general teaching, learning, research environment at all levels of medical education, from the university through the internatura and to the continuing professional development, that is lifelong learning, all the professional life of a member of the medical profession. Medical projects approach through this combined and comprehensive training in theory, clinical skills, peer group facilitation, communication skills, networking, organizational capacity building, all this will significantly, I think, contribute to the development of a competent and trustworthy and resilient primary healthcare team that will improve the healthcare and the health of the whole population. And I am sure it will play an important role in the resilience of Ukraine now, and I hope in the recovery phase that I hope will start very, very soon. I wish the project much success, and I hope that it will be allowed to continue its very effective work in the development of medical education in Ukraine. Thank you very much for your attention.
І ми дякуємо, Ренат.
And we also would like to thank Renato for his speech and for highlighting very important topics, and for the fact that we have the opportunity to always ask and to always ask him for advice about these important topics, especially for these links among different population like teacher, researcher, clinician. We are seeing that not just in this audience, but also beyond in our approaches and our activities. However, in addition to the point of view from the side, we would like to present a brief video regarding what's happened, what kind of experience did we have during the last year. So please, dear colleagues, turn on the video. Thank you, and I am offering to come to small parts of everything that you've seen on the video because there we mentioned the key blocks, the key directions that we were working in, and this is both about expanding the role of nurses and expanding their organizational culture, ethics, confidentiality, various moments. And in all of that, we would like to dedicate the second half of the day today to all of that and to start with the topic of continuous professional development. And taking into account that the project was involved in transformation of various educational formats together with the partners and joined these transformations, we are seeing that more and more often doctors and nurses, they are choosing the formats where they can develop their clinical communication skills, and not only those. Well, actually, I would like to invite to the discussion on CPR because CPD, yeah, it's what we are doing. Yes, so we invited our partners, creators, participants of all those formats. So I invite to join the discussion Iryna Voloshyna, Doctor of Medical Sciences, Professor, Training Center for Family Medicine of National Medical University, family doctor, co-founder of Academy of Family Medicine. Maryna Opalenko, yeah, pediatrician, Center for Primary Medical and Sanitary Support, and facilitator of peer groups, co-founder of the Book Club of Facilitators. Yeah, I also think that they are worth to hear your applause from all the participants. Oleksandr Prokopchuk, also facilitator of peer groups, family doctor, and director of Zolotanivsky facility. Olena Matsekh, family doctor, Iryna. Yevheniia Melnyk, head of the Academy of Anastasia. And Mladena Kachurets, the consultant of the project on development of policies in medical education. Yeah. So we are all together in here, and if we even have enough chairs, that means that we can start this discussion. About the continuous development, about different formats of that, and all of you are engaged in this in different roles. In many countries, the story about CPD is the story about self-guided development, where responsibility for that is on participants, actually. Therefore, the project is supporting many formats that are created by the community and for the community. And I will ask Ms. Iryna, I will ask you to start about one of such formats, and as the co-founder of the Azov School, what role, in your point of view, did Azov School play in development of CPD, and what are the key results? Hi everyone. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I am so happy to be here and discuss things that are not material, but it's one of the most valuable things that we could take from the occupied territory, from the city of Berdyansk. Azov School of Family Medicine, well, I would say that now it's kind of pret-a-porter or from couture. It's fashion, because we started Azov School when no one understood us actually. In educational environment, we started with forming the topics like ophthalmoscopy and other topics back in 2019 when there were still like paths for a month. When we needed that for increasing qualification, like you go somewhere, it still exists, huh? Okay. Probably I missed something, but now I'm really pleased that what we've been doing like 5-6 years ago is absolutely new. Now it's of the large scale and pret-a-porter level. It is implemented in life, and a colossal number of family doctors, they master the colonoscopy, and I am so happy that now institutions and medical catheterized family medicine, now we can make the research, right? And it's not just the ophthalmoscope that we can use, but also
some scams, and also like I will reveal some secrets because we will add the option of processing with the help of AI in order to help specialists of the primary field to understand faster what we see there, because we have the updated standards on diabetes, etc. So yeah, family medicine is on a, I don't like this word, but on the front line, and it always answers the challenges that we see in our life and the challenges that we are kind of expecting, I guess. You know, when we were on the seaside, on the sand, in protective vests, I think we had some intuition, or maybe the hostilities in the Donetsk region. Again, we are talking about 2020, 2021. I am grateful to all those people, to all my team of Azov School and Trainer team and the team of Ukrainian-Swiss project development of medical education, because we created a unique product of good quality, and this product has given its results. And I think that the fact that we have Azov Camp, it's a kind of child of Azov School of Family Medicine, and thank you so much for helping us to make a good quality product from different points of view. So for example, like one very simple example, when people are coming and they are saying like, I want to go to Azov School, how do I do that? And I'm saying like, you know, it's different because, well, it's not one person who is deciding how to get there. We created a unique system of getting the participants in order to allow, well, if you fit in the criteria, then like is the doctor or intern or student, etc. So we made a really hard decision, which is called One's Life event. That is just one life. One time in your life you can come as a participant to Azov School, but you have a chance to go there as a trainer as well. And I'm so proud that for each Azov School we have those who undertook the school as a participant, and now they are coming as trainers and they are sharing their knowledge, and it's really valuable. Thank you. Thank you so much for this format. And what is very important that you mentioned that the impact is happening even beyond Azov School. And this is very valuable for us because we are observing these changes as well. Because this is the format where you can gain some clinical skills, and it is also charging the agents of changes that are disseminating the ideas in their teams, like progressive ideas, I would say. You have mentioned the child of Azov School, Azov Camp, right? And Mladena, you were close to that, and why interns? Why? What is the uniqueness of this audience, etc. Yes, this year we were making the Azov campaign quite interesting and changed format. It consisted of two parts. One was more about the worldview. It was about the financing systems of healthcare system and leadership and development of soft skills. And the second part of the camp, it was aiming more at more practically oriented learning, namely regarding family medicine. But why interns? Well, first of all, our audience were interns and family doctors who's just started their practice. And those are people who during 6 years they were in the same bulb. They were living, they were existing in the environment of educational institution, and they had their rules, they had their environment formed, and it was the system of interaction for them which was clear, whether they like that or not, but it was clear at least. They are coming to internship in totally different environment. The environment of healthcare institution may be other educational institution where there are like own rules, own approaches. It is not always a friendly environment from what we are seeing among the participants. There was a lot of reflections regarding the fact that, well, it's not a friendly environment for them, which is supportive and where they feel themselves part of the team. And therefore, it was important for interns to form this feeling of belonging to the community, that they are not, well, left alone with their problems and their needs, but that there are quite a lot of same-minded people. They are colleagues and they can communicate, they can interact with them, they can discuss absolutely different topics regarding clinical practice and some political topics and topics from the society, etc. And it was the primary task of the camp to create a good environment, communication where interns understand that they are part of the community. And it seems to me that we succeeded because of the different formats that were used during the camp. Thank you, Mladena. Maryna, you were also engaged in this format and like forming this environment, which is good for education and open for belonging to this community. Maybe you can share some kind of tips that you took from Azov camp and you're using in different formats. It's a good question. Thank you about the Azov camp. Well, I am just fond of the idea to take students, as far as I understand. Well, there were students, interns, and certain number of people, and to create the environment where they can communicate. And this is a very good idea because everything starts with the perception of the system where you're working, to understand where do you move on and why is that working this way and what it depends on you right now in this place. So we as facilitators joined the second part already, and now the aim was to form the community, and this community came true. And now I'm observing this, and it's more than half a year since the time that they left, but still they are in this community, Telegram community, I mean, and they are meeting each other all the time on different events. Somebody is coming to Kiev, somebody is coming to Lviv, they are seeing each other to go for a coffee. They created a book club, and I'm just fond of that, and I see that as of now, it's a bit hard still, but they've got it. And I remember how many efforts we put in order to create this community, that is, we were engaging them all the time somewhere, and we were putting them in a condition of a small crisis, controlled crisis, I would say, especially when we were going to the top of the mountain. That was interesting experience. Yeah, kind of everything was controlled. Well, yeah, I thought like we are live, so I need to say that everything was controlled, but actually not everything was controlled. But thanks God the crisis didn't happen. However, nevertheless, this united people, and it's a small way out of the comfort zone. It was certain stress, and now they are communicating. So as for me, for example, when I'm participating in some events, I always pay attention to the fact whether there are some worldview things in this, because they are very important for our development. That's how it is. Thank you very much, Maryna. Indeed, that was a format that combined educational and reflection formats to a great extent, as far as I've heard about that. And well, actually, these reflections allow the participants to understand their own vision, their own trajectories of professional development, and to study in different contexts and on different topics. And as for forming the community, this is a very nice example that they are not just formed on their own, but as Maryna is saying, it requires a lot of efforts in order to be formed and to exist further on. From our observations, it's not just the community which is communicating among themselves, because we can see the example of integration of various communities, and we've heard about the group of doctors, as well as far as I know, who decided to study English, and they invited one of the interns to teach. And it's also about the interaction between these two formats, and it's a request regarding English language. And here Maryna, again, I will come back to you. I'm sorry, but you were on Volca conference this year. What can you say about this experience? What can it give to the community, and how available it is for the family doctors community, and what added value it can bring? I mean, the participation in such events. Well, the idea itself, that you can go to the conference of this level, European level, European conference. Well, even in the nearest future, I did not see such prospects and couldn't imagine that this is possible. And thanks to the project, yeah, it became possible. And I like Nasta's words about Oscar and family medicine. Well, it's just into my heart, you know. But as for what can it give to us, right? We had a really different team with different requests, and this is so cool because we brought different things. Some brought the vision, how the healthcare system in Ireland works. Some brought information about how the nurse and doctor are working together. Some brought the vision regarding researches in family medicine or regarding the teaching. So this is absolutely different integration, and it's very important when we've been here already to disseminate this experience. And I know that many of us have conducted our local conferences and meetings and peer-to-peer meetings where we were answering the requests of our participants. And also we had online event which is dedicated to our experience of like going there. And what I liked that this conference, it's a possibility to the possibility to go there. And I want to make a small announcement. There was a brief story.
Sure. Okay, the story. Dreams come true. In Ivansi there was a banner, and they invited to take part in the global conference in Lisbon in 2025. So you had to take photo next to banner and tag the Wonka 2025 on Instagram. Many did, and they say, okay, well then, try to give away these tickets in the lottery. So I actually won one of the tickets to take part in Wonka 2025. I know how expensive it will be. I start collecting money, but this will be an experience. Second thing I didn't expect, what Daryna mentioned, the doctors who couldn't come to the conference because of their poor English fluency, they didn't give up. They understood that there was some potential, and facilitators united, and we have our Telegram group now for weekly meetings, and it's like a speaking club, English speaking club for us to make sure that we are fluent. It still functions, and we organize, launch various communities. So of both of Azov camps, and she's the facilitator of the meeting, yes. So that's good. Horizontal connections actually work because these are the strongest. Thank you so much for the insights that you brought from Wonka, the whole team, and thank you for sharing so openly. Because what we observe in the community, there's certain demand, and people respond to it, and the presentations that you give are really in demand, and many people would love to hear more. Not only you bring something from Wonka, Oleksandr, it's like you have a big suitcase, you take it to all events and you bring something from each. So we observe you and what you're doing and the changes that you initiate in your establishment. Okay, where do you get ideas from? Where do you get motivation, inspiration to put these ideas into practice? Ideas are taken from the trips. So, our HCFs, expertise of each HCF is unique. So you can't compare big PHC center, in a big city, and the similar center providing services to villagers. In the most remote with the most remote unit located in 50 kilometers. So this is something exemplary, as we say. Please be active in this movement, just like us. We've been driving around in our wall. Every time we have this family photo brought from each trip, and we now need to look for new walls to hang the photos. Because there are so many friends we really love to visit still. We grab these ideas and trips, what I saw in Bucha, in a small town, the round table. So our conference hall started with the cloakroom. We took everything out. It was like a big cloakroom. We bought some chairs, and we had these chairs located just like you said. Then I met the peer group format, and I thought this was not okay, so we started putting them in circle. Then we understood that people needed to make notes. Okay, tables then emerged. And after I came to Bucha, I saw a really nice small round table. I loved it. So we purchased some more tables, and now we have a big round table for 30 people. And I advise you to use this format even for meetings, because when I sit or stand and when I talk to people will start, whispering, Everything will be discussed, in a whisper. So when you have it happening at the round table, everybody can see what you're whispering to each other. So every idea is properly perceived. So I recommend this format. So it started with a very small thing, by the way, experience exchange. These were friendly visits for peer groups between our centers in Cherkasy region. It started with a very small thing, but we can see it's a national scope already. Yes, it's really an interesting new format. We called it medical tourism, but it actually is functional. We already have photo albums. Thank you for it. Thank you for sharing. And we continue observing its growth. Okay, you noticed a very important thing. Quite often we can learn with very simple elements. And in previous discussion, Oksana spoke of her experience with Sezam. Some simple, really average things can teach us a lot. Thank you for noticing round tables and bringing these in your luggage. It's not difficult only to bring the idea, but to integrate the idea. It's a skill. It's about how you manage the changes, how you work with a team. If this skill is accessible, if it's developed in your communities, do you succeed in implementing changes? Olena, you are in your master's program, healthcare management. Well, okay, you're a doctor. Why do you need managerial skills now? Why are you there? What do you actually search for? Well, yes, I am a master's student. I think that I entered this program because I was bored. I had nothing to do, and apart from motherhood, my professional activity, UNICEF project participation, well, I thought, like, okay, I have too much of free time, and I sleep too long. So I was enrolled at master's program. Healthcare management, this is the title, but it really covers more than management. Maybe this is my understanding of the management word. Maybe initially it was intended like that, but it's a new story. And for me as for doctor, what I really lacked, the basic understanding on how the system is functioning. And I think that it's important to understand. So when you are an element of the system, but you still don't understand, you do everything you can, but how specifically it impacts? What can you do to give a better impact? So I became a student again, and it seems to me that limiting yourself and saying, oh, I'm a doctor and this is my niche, I don't think it's a good stuff, because it's static. But if there's something interesting, you should try. Try that. And you can get many other skills, many new skills, which may help me in my professional activity as a doctor, delegating or prioritizing, time management. Plus, it helps me to avoid burnout when I see a huge number of people who are very dynamic and those who push changes. Average people push the changes. You just have to see it and feel it. And I'm a lucky person. Maybe luck is maybe you just do something and then think, oh, I'm lucky because I have it. But I'm really lucky because after my internship, I came to a very supportive environment. But here I found people who are very inspiring, like Yevheniia, Oksana, my group mates. I don't know how can I get any burnout with that kind of environment, you know. When you do something, when you're really willing to do, and when this willingness, okay, it's just about having an idea. You move forward to the idea and you just have faith in yourself. I was enrolled in the program and a big project was launched. So where I'm an academic leader and we handle education. UNICEF breastfeeding course, that is. And I'm a good learner, I'm a good student, and Anastasia and Ihor entrusted this to me, and I try to act as executive director, and it actually helps me to move forward. I think this is like a long answer. Why should the doctor get any managerial course? Well, it's a pity there is no score, but I would never collect any more certificates if I had. But it would be like a million CPD score. Okay, Tetiana, this is an idea for you. I would love to replace diploma with a big score, but okay. It's more than just scoring, it's more than development. I think this is one of the milestones in my life. It doesn't matter what happens then, but this is a huge step. Thank you. I say thank you to Project for doing this. Thank you for, using your luck, life luck. Okay, so when you become a master's program student or when you just take a photo, it's about your efforts. It's about your desire to change something. Okay. We talked about various formats and I move from one to another. Very good positioning we have today. Yevheniia, it's interesting to get it from you. Can I have your opinion? NHS Academy. How do you promote development of your CPD formats? Which formats do you think are useful? Which are in demand in the community? First of all, in PHC community. Thank you for the question. Honestly, we believe that CPD is not about scores or ratings, it's much more. It's about the willingness of medical staff to improve, and we try to help them with that. So, as for me, Academy is a great platform to scale up educational projects and bring these to a national level. There are many examples of great, with international participation, of great projects which had first some small offline events, but then they saw that the knowledge was in demand and they couldn't cover more people with offline formats, so they brought it to online format. And eventually they put it on Academy's platform. No, it's not just MHCAP. There are many of such initiatives, and I think this is a great thing when such training is provided to doctors and nurses and other practitioners from all around the country anytime they want. Another important mission, our mission is to make this training interesting, interactive, super innovative, okay? To stimulate medical professionals to continue with the CPD. But we also think about other formats, not just about online, of course. Just a small teaser. In 2025, we are planning to have an interesting offline format in NHS. We will have a very powerful training project in NHS, I hope, and we are actively engaged in other initiatives where we are partners, various forums and conferences, and other schools where we try to support the willingness and aspiration of medics to improve. And just to show that this is not always about CPD, we started working with students, medical students, so we still don't offer them any, of course, CPD scores, but at the same time, we want to familiarize them at early stage and somehow shift their paradigms. We talk to students a lot, and we have internships for our students in NHS, and this is like a breath of fresh air because it's not just we share with them, but they share with us. They share ideas, they share their demands and needs, and then we can instantly respond to their requests and offer something that is good for them. So these are different formats, and this is the answer on how to make CPD super interesting and useful. Thank you for this link between CPD and postgraduate education. Okay, everyone who wants to answer that, if you want to. What is the role of pre-graduate education for a successful CPD? Is there any connection between those? Should we do something at the stage? So, as a university professor, I can tell you that if a person is in the training process, if one does not understand that this is a continuous activity, well, in 3-5 years, the knowledge will just become obsolete, and we won't get a high-quality professional, a competent professional. Therefore, it's about continuity from the very beginning. And training does not end after internship. No. So the CPD system, the constant improvement system, you should familiarize people that at pre-graduate level for them to understand how can they improve, where to get information from and resources. We all spoke of our sectors and areas, but this is about professional development and improvement, constant improvement. Okay, so CPD concept complies very well with the electives concept. So during their university training, they start selecting some subjects, additional ones they're interested in. It's just the same with the CPD and events, just like events. So CPD, we have to start it. You have to start when you're a student, okay? And to what Iryna mentioned, yes, it's about continuous learning. It's a continuous process, permanent. And professors and teachers must continuously learn. So that's why I'm a master's student. Healthcare management I picked, and I think those who teach others, they must be permanently taught as well and trained. Just to add a little bit about pre-graduate level, mainly, yes, methods, university training methods define future professional behavior. Regardless if this is a compulsory or elective subject, professor may be still keeps the intrigue for a student. When student autonomously decides, it's if you make it interesting for the student, and for student to know where to find additional information, and that is how the habit is shaped to search for information, to learn how to get more. So it depends on professors, if they are creative enough, if they are creative with their teaching methods. Thank you for the comments, and thank you for trying to find this connection. And yes, this will not fall on us overnight, fall on every practitioner's head. Oh, like it's about continuous professional development. Yeah. So a typical conversation when we speak about CPD, motivation comes to the surface. Yes. It's something you can't avoid in this talk. So, based on your observation, does this motivation emerge in the community? What kind of motivation there is? Score, orders, internal motivation, what that is, and what is picked by people? Okay, let me answer. So, I think what should be understood first? Motivation. If we speak about motivation, it's internal process. Everything else is stimulation, guys. So,
All of us, if we are talking now about medical workers, once we have chosen the profession and we've chosen our path in medicine, each of us had certain reasons to do that. Well, again, I would like to say that those are not financial reasons, because if the person wants to become a millionaire, medicine is not the first thing that comes to your mind. But these reasons, why the person once has chosen the path of a nurse, of a doctor, this is motivation. This is the flame that is burning, and the main task is for this flame not to go down. And you need to keep up this flame. You can do this, creating various conditions. Now we can talk about different options, like what can be done for the doctor, for the nurse, for the manager, not to have burnout at workplace and to develop themselves and to study. But I think that we don't need to cause good to our colleague. We just need to get the feedback. We just need to ask, what does he want? And if we get this information, we can use that later on. And indeed, we can create the conditions where our medical worker would like to develop him or herself. Thank you very much, Oleksandr. Maybe someone else would like to talk about motivation? Yeah, I would like to mention just a few words. Literally, for me, certain training, it's always... By the way, I just saw that in application forms made by the project when applying advertising, I guess, the new event. It was something new for me. Well, what is your motivation, right? What do you expect from this? And earlier when we had some issues, I was never asked, why do I go there, right? I am going there to have some rest from my work, like for 2 weeks, and it's like the vacation with payment, yeah? Did I learn something there? Yes, I was learning something, but of course it was a bit, well, kind of, it was not in line with the things that I was working with. I was working with simple cases and they were talking about some important matters, something that I can see once in a few years, and if I see that. If we are talking about motivation, now there's a lot of different formats of education, and as a doctor I can already choose like where do I want to go. But if I study somewhere, it's about my resource, because I'm spending time, I'm spending, like if that is a fine event and I need to spend some money on that. And for me the question is always like, do I participate here or not? Is what I want to get from this. Why do I need this? Will I really have the resource to implement something new, or will I have the resource to share the knowledge with my colleagues, for example, so that we can create something in our institution, or we can discuss some patient's road. So personally for me, motivation is what do I want to get at the end. And it's not just a question like, oh, everybody's going there and I will go there because in KU, like I can just have some walk in KU. No, now the motivation is like, it doesn't matter whether it gives the score of CPD or not, but if I know that I can change something with this, then yes. If not, then why do I need to spend my resource? I can spend that into some other direction. Thank you very much for such a systemic approach that we can look at and we can study from this. Ms. Yevheniia, your helicopter view, so to say. Yeah, I would like to say a few words about the types of motivation and stimulation that we can see from our side, from the side of the academy, because I've heard that in some cases even the Department of Health is writing some letters to the institutions with a request to have some courses at the academy, to provide their staff who had some courses in the academy, and for sure it's not our initiative. I'm telling you to promote these courses. The big motivator is, of course, the fact that some courses are in the set of medical services. Of course, I think that there's no such motivation in any other type of courses and such ads as going to the package of medical guarantees, but we see the interest also from medical workers to undergo certain like courses that are related with soft skills, and in the form of the feedback, because according to the results of all the educational courses we are taking the form of feedback. So there one of the questions is, we are interested like what encouraged you for taking this course. Yeah, and they say either the management, or I needed the CPD scores, or I was interested and I wanted to get the knowledge. And well, the scores were chosen only by 20% of the respondents, and all the rest are choosing mainly the answers like I need the knowledge for work. So I decided that I'm gonna take the training. And that is really nice to hear that this is the main motivator for education and continuous professional development. Thank you very much. We have another confirmation factor to the topic that this course of CPD now is not as important as it used to be, because now I can recall the evening group format. They are functioning for quite some time and they don't have any scores for that still for their trainings or conducting trainings, and they exist and they also like disseminate it among others. But what if we try to connect the topic of motivation and the topic of scores, because we have the facilitators of the peer groups. Maryna, Oleksandr, do you see the issues with motivation of the participants of peer groups? What do you do with that? They just don't come. I mean, that's the thing, that the format of peer group, it's absolutely voluntarily. So usually I write an announcement to the group, to doctors, and I'm saying like, those who want to, please do come. Those who don't, they just don't come. But sometimes like people who want, they come, and I don't know how to perceive that, but doctors came. The doctors came, we are talking about something, and I see that at the back people, they just close their eyes and they sleep, because it's not about education, it's about non-formal communication. Well, as for the CPD scores, well, it was never the aim of our meetings, because thanks to God they have the possibility to gain online those. So my doctors, they have more of this score than I do. But at the end of every year, I'm thinking like, oh God, please give me like 50 more points, because I don't know what I'm gonna do if I will have a lack of those points. But they have it already, and they are coming just because they can meet their needs in communication, in knowledge. So this is the main thing. And also like the same, like prevention of professional burnout. That is, they see their colleagues in the last peer group that we had. Well, it is not even given. We can see that in their eyes. When you're looking at people and their eyes are like shining, I don't know why they're shining. Maybe it's not just when they come to such groups, but it is motivating, and you understand that those tiny steps that you're making, they are in the right direction. It appeared only recently. It's some kind of love. It's the feeling that you're family with those doctors, feeling of full acceptance, full safety. It's the feeling that you can talk about everything that hurts, and you can share and you won't be judged, and in addition to that you will gain some knowledge and skills and change in attitude, etc. So it's a very cool format. Thank you for highlighting a bit the superpower of this format. Alexandra? Yes, I don't think that CPD is motivation or even stimulation. It is more like obligation because it is documented. And even more, I know the case where the doctor has gained in 1 year, she's gained 1,613 scores. And the argument that like there are 24 hours in a day, it doesn't work. I don't know what kind of category she will get for this, but yeah, eternally the category. But again, it's not about the score. I absolutely agree with Maryna that the score is like the side effect of my activity because you're participating in many events and then step by step, like the everything's coming together. It's about the attitude to people. It's the format where you feel comfortable, where you are on the same page with other people, because no one can understand the nurse as good as the other nurse or doctor as another doctor, and like the manager in a healthcare system can be understood the best by the same manager. So for the feeling of understanding, mutual understanding, they are coming there. Okay, maybe some other moments that were unexpected for you and happened to you as a result of education to become facilitators of peer groups. I would like to say, regarding the unexpected moments, when you're studied to be the facilitator of peer groups, you are charged kind of by this idea, and you have such a moment, fear, not to turn the project down. And it's such a cool thing. You need to share this love, right? And you don't know much and you don't have enough skills. I remember myself 3 years ago, I was afraid of making like the first meeting of the group, and I had anxious disorder. Like, what if they won't come? What if my USB memory stick won't work? What if and what if? And what Renee mentioned is that one thing is to implement, so to say, like to teach facilitators, but it's very important also to support that further on, like further support in light of supervisory meetings, a lot of trainings for facilitators, a lot of educational events where there are some congresses. And what did it give? This processing during 3 years, it reduced anxiety from me and my colleagues. You know, it's certain psychotherapy for me. In addition to that, as for the side effects of the project and peer groups, as a facilitator, I was participating in summer school for healthcare, right? And there were lots of speakers and book authors like Andrei Lyubka and Zelinsky and Mikhailo Vinitsky, I guess. Yeah, so a wide variety of books were presented there. And Oля Korolenko comes up to me and she says, like, there's such a lot of books. I would like to share these books with the community of facilitators. And I'm saying, like, yeah. And she says, like, well, probably we could have done that during our like book club. And she said, and I say maybe. And she's saying, like, will you do that? And I'm saying, like, yes, probably. Well, actually, the first project believed in me earlier than I believed in my powers, and it's a very sensitive moment for me because this project believes in people, and that's cool. And when I wrote about that into a group of community facilitators that here is the idea, let us create the book club, and they supported this. So all the participants who are now active participants like Anastasia and Ms. Lemeshko, they said like, cool, book club, we are supporting. And I'm saying like, do you have any idea how that should look like? They are saying, we will figure it out right now. And this is how the book club started functioning, but that's not it. At that moment, I was reading like 3 books per year, and I did not finish like 33 books per year. But then I started reading like 12 books per year at least, and that's not it. I came to work and I said like, oh, okay, we read with my colleagues this book, and we liked it so much. And my colleagues at work are saying like, oh, it's so disgusting to listen to you right now. Why don't we make it for ourselves as well? And we opened for doctors this book club at our institution also, like offline meetings we are having. Only the book club for the doctors, because those who are not doctors, they left. Maybe, well, it's more like a closed community, but up to 10 doctors from different hospitals are coming, like centers for primary help, etc. And we've celebrated the 2nd year with them, and we went for the 3rd. And I see from my participants that also in their regions they opened the book clubs for their doctors. So the number of people who are reading is growing, and that is wonderful. Again, it's about, it's about the group that is mentioned and the facilitator among the facilitators of peer groups. And people are asking, how can I just come to you? And I'm saying, there is no way. Become facilitator and we will talk. How do I become a facilitator? Wait, have patience. Okay, yeah, Maryna, I was asking about the side effects. I did not expect to hear about anxiety. To be honest, I'm sorry for that, but I'm so glad that there were some other things that are kind of prevailing over this anxiety, and that you said goodbye to your anxiety, Taking into account the time limitations, now I would like to offer everyone to maybe try to share some personal story which happened to you with the CPD this year. It shouldn't be like inside, maybe some event, maybe some something, some hashtag, some photos made, some personal story that happened to you and changed something for you in 2024. I'm just considering which one should be mentioned, which of the stories. Well, if possible, I will mention 2 stories, very brief ones. The first one, I am so proud of the fact that we've conducted TOT for the faculties of family medicine, not just TOT, but we've conducted that according to methodologies that are recommended by colleagues from international organizations. We've conducted that into 2 stages with quite a big dropout rate, and I think it's a really cool result, and very, very motivated and cool teachers came to the end, and soon they will pilot a range of trainings. I think that universities will tell about that themselves. This is the first insight. Second, we started launching the training, and I am proud of the fact that I joined the development of the program on women's health, like gynecology, etc. I won't show the mannequin in pictures, but wait for it. Thank you so much for your announcements. Olena, yep. You asked what was unexpected in this year or during the year on like continuous professional development. We have a joke in the program. It's my personal joke as well. From unexpected this year, I came to Zhytomyr thanks to master's program. But to be serious, then out of the insights, when I was in Azov school, by the way, Ms. Iryna mentioned that it's not that easy to go there. Indeed, this is how it is. I went there from the 4th attempt, I guess. So we had dermatoscopy courses, and we were taught by Ivan Kuchak, and then I was teaching him how to do the breastfeeding, and that was very pleasant, I guess, for me. When I am looking at what my colleagues can do, I think like, wow, they can do that. I can't. I need to learn how to do that. And this is also about motivation. And then when I can share something and I can change somebody's attitude and I can give some tools, and they are saying like also like, wow, that is so cool. So this peer-to-peer format is the closest one for me. This is also one of the insights that I am trying to catch everywhere. So who is teaching me what, and what can I share? Thank you very much, Olena. So Zhytomyr, and surprise, it happens to many people who knows Matviy. But thank you very much, Matviy, for being a sponsor in these stories, Yevheniia. Yeah, I just recalled the school this year. I was honored to be there, and a lot of attention was paid to the topic of scientific research and in general, like how to conduct good quality research in the field of health. And I thought that it's a really good topic to develop in. And actually, in the academy, well, we are operating a huge number of data, and it would be very interesting to analyze the data in order to make certain extrapolations and some conclusions regarding the fact, like how our format of CPD can be developed. And today we mentioned that soon there's a deadline for the thesis to international MA conference. And I mentioned the deadline for myself, and I think that, okay, I need to prepare my thesis in order to somehow show the results of my research to other people. Thank you very much for that, because we mentioned different roles and the fact that you're underlining also like the research role. Yeah, for me it became unexpected that like the nurses who are working in my institution, they want to study. There was such a case that at the end of summer, I sent to the general chat of the institution registration form for the training on MHCAP. And I said, like, everybody who's interested, like, please go ahead and register. I didn't ask how many people registered there, but then every month, even every week, I'm coming to Facebook, like September, October, November, and 5 our nurses went to one training. The next time, there were 9 of those. And it was like, how does our chef let them go? Like 9 nurses for one training. And we have special institution because we have a lot of ambulance points, and it's a rural area. So actually, we have lots of nurses, and as far as they are working directly with people at places, they have huge request for training. And as of now, really tiny opportunity to cover this. So any educational opportunity where nurses are invited, they go like everywhere. And every time when looking at Facebook, I see that this year we have like 25 nurses who had the first level of the training on MHCAP, and maybe like 15 to up to 22nd level. And now I understand that this is the potential, the opportunity that already next year I'm gonna create in terms of expanding the powers of nurses, so like empowering nurses. So the wish of my nurses to study, it's the biggest unexpected thing. So now I have to use all the opportunities to find some trainings for them. Thank you very much. That is really cool, Oleksandr. Yeah, actually, there were lots of events, but somehow in 2024, I decided to experiment. I wanted to experiment. We have technical conditions for doing that, and we decided to have some non-standard peer group. We watched movie.
So first we watched the movie, then we discussed, and this was quite an interesting thing from the standpoint of science, you know. They show the attitude to the doctor in Soviet times, and we can see all these childhood diseases of our system. Why our doctor now is different from foreign colleagues, and they also show how hard it was for those doctors, a doctor lady who was trying to promote those values that we have today: holistic approach, patient focused, and so on. And we watched the movie, and we've had a 1 hour discussion, and this is a great thing actually when you want to assess the attitude to your profession and discuss that. So I recommend this format. Yeah, so soon we will open a movie club. Thank you. Mladena, should we stop? I'm not a doctor, and CPD requirements do not cover me. But in terms of motivation, of what I heard here, first of all, some CPD formats should be properly communicated, and we have to create this exclusiveness, you know, to make sure there is demand. And sometimes CPD score is not, it's a compulsory tool, yes, but without regulatory changes, it would take us much longer to recognize the need. The need for CPD in the community wasn't well recognized, okay? Even when we show how it should be and showing those various formats, active community can somehow encourage passive people, those who just need some regulatory requirements purely. And we can even get the statements of newly converted people saying, wow, we could have done it like that. We could have had these reflections or getting something new for us, not just sitting because you get 500 score. Some stimulating steps can shape the need and show people something they've never been thinking before. Yes. Thank you so much for concluding the discussion. No, I don't have to do that. But so maybe someone wants to ask a question. Just one question if you have, please. Okay? So Daryna really makes it very exclusive. Only one question. Only now. Only 9.99. Okay. Coffee break is at your disposal, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy, and later we'll talk about nursing and the role. Role of nurses. Thank you.
Колеги, ага, не працює. Колеги, ні?
Щоб воно не дало
Окей.
we have everybody, so these are gonna be taken. So we still speak about PHC, okay? Vladyslav, Serhii, join us, please. Okay, so the next topic we're about to discuss, would like to discuss with our meeting. It's about the nursing, okay? Okay, so you can see that we do it in different ways. Okay. So people were sitting in segments initially, educators apart from practitioners. When we changed the positioning, we started integrating people. Okay. Everybody will mix later and we'll just talk. Okay. Nursing. So the panel discussion, nurses can, and for development, they need conducive environment and educational opportunities of high quality. Matviy Khrenov will moderate, who is the consultant, and he actually initiated the pilot project on the nurse's role, and he was there within 3 years with us. So we invited representatives of pilot establishments and friendly projects, MOH, and universities. Okay, Matviy. We have Antonina Mozharivska, Zhytomyr Medical Institute, Tetiana Horuk, PHC Voloshyna from Rivne, Oksana Dzham, who is the head of Bucha PHC Center, Vladyslav Odrynskyi, representing Friendly Project USAID, and Nazar Kozovyi from Colombia, Municipal PHC Center, and Serhii Ubohov. We already know him, Ministry of Health. Great. So Matviy, please. I do hope that we'll have a very interesting discussion. So you raised the bar for this to be a unique discussion, okay. Is it about discussion? I just want to note for educators, look at these chairs and the chairs in your panel discussions. I'm the only person who took both. The previous ones are better. No hints. Okay, we will definitely bring it to Zhytomyr and you will understand why we do that. Okay, again, we have 2 people from Zhytomyr in the panel. So why do I moderate this panel? So this is your pilot, you will moderate. Very democratic, but truly I want to start with a different thing. In the project we have a very interesting activity, the podcast, and it doesn't have relation to this panel, but I have to say it here. I think it was an interesting initiative because, as Daryna said, people from other projects talked to us saying we know about this person from a podcast and they wanted to invite the person. So it's a success. Before we start a discussion, this was Vlad's idea. So we'll start with him. He offered us, when we were preparing for discussion, he offered us to clear out the definitions because quite often we use the extended powers of nurse definition. And I agree that different people and different professionals can mean their own thing when they say that. What does it mean for you? Extended powers of a nurse. So, autonomous nurse and extended power nurse, well, these are synonyms. It's all about new roles, it's the key thing. In Ukraine, this is easily to perceive. In Ukraine, we have this traditional attitude to nurses as an assistant or the one who helps doctor, okay? this is an important subject in the system and autonomous one. We've spoken a lot about it, but finally the strategic document reflects this practically. And making a nurse visible in the system, well, we remember the figures. 20, 20, 40, and 20. Yeah, remember these. 20% of doctors in the system, 20% of junior medical staff, 20 others, and 40 nurses. 40 goes for nurses. So 2/5, the largest group of the staff, these are nurses. In broad sense, I mean. The lab employees, everyone who is under specific codes in the classifier. And we will correct the classifier. So, with this huge number of professionals and just understanding that their contribution to the healthcare system is not even underestimated, but their capacity is underestimated. So this is the key motive to change the roles performed or carried out by the professionals in the system, and potential roles they may actually carry out, and how they do it in the West. For me, nurse with extended powers, or NEP, or autonomous nurse, AN. This is about new roles in the system. Thank you. Svetlana, question to you as to a nurse. Okay? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for me? Today, this is not something equal. These are different definitions. Nurse with extended powers is a professional working in a team together with doctor based on Order 504, but one can work autonomously and perform the duties and execute the powers delegated by doctor. Autonomy for me is the step which we had to get after extension of powers, and this is the process that already started. The nurse will be able to work autonomously. Autonomy is independence. Nurse currently still doesn't have that sort of independence because one has no declaration to become independent, basically. One has no license, relevant license. But for us, for nurses, this is like a quantum leap because previously we didn't have that. We were sitting in the same office with a doctor, and if doctor allows you to do something, you did that. If he doesn't, well, then no. Thanks to both projects,
медсестри мають більше можливостей.
Nurses have more opportunities, and it depends on the nurse now, if she wants or not, if she chooses that or doesn't. Okay? Serhii. What is for you? What is that for you? So I agree with colleagues, and I recall the discussion that we had a year and a half ago. We had Zoom, and we said that these extended powers, we have to formalize these, okay? Because what does it mean? Within qualification requirements or beyond these? And those empowering for certain new manipulations or actions to be performed by nurse, and one shall not be held liable later. So one will not go beyond the powers, and we have to formalize it very properly and clearly in which scope the nurse can act, right? I think that we'll have to do it all together, like formulating the definition and clearly defining which qualification levels we want to establish for the nurse. We spoke of the attestation procedure. We've had a discussion even in our meetings with the minister. The nursing center people came to meetings, and even then we wanted to launch other approaches, like they have it in the US, how to call such a nurse autonomous or whatever, certified. But after the discussion, we decided to keep the qualification category formally for the nurses, but rebranding or renaming or establishing new qualification levels. So the nursing chamber will do that, the one established as a self-governance body. But if we keep the name of the category, but we still can put proper content within the qualification levels. In the competencies, we will describe for the nurse, higher category nurse, not just with the amount of years and CPD score, but for the nurse to actually master a broader scope of competencies. Thank you. How do doctors perceive that? What actually has changed? Let's step into practical dimension. And clinical autonomy, do we have it in practice, basically? Does it emerge? It really depends on which team, in which team the practice is, in which facility, let's say. We have 52 teams in our facility providing PHC, and we tried to present this function of autonomous nurse. In the facility, it worked differently. In some cases, this function, well, the nurse had some functions. This was mostly about preventive work with, like, under Order 504. Regardless of doctor usually may not even know, like, what's happening there. There are teams where it happens under coordination of doctors, so doctor still oversees the process. And there are teams where it doesn't work, it doesn't work out at all. So before coming here and telling about extended power nurse, so first I asked my doctors, my nurses and managers, okay, in our PHC units, if they feel that nurse role has become more significant. All the managers said yes, it has become more significant. All the doctors said yes, and it was surprising for me because 8% of nurses said nothing changed for them. Then we have to recognize that. And even one nurse said, maybe this is a statistical error, but one nurse said that nurses' responsibility worsened. So I was in a train and I was analyzing. When we were entering the project, we understood that there were nurses working in the municipality, so just doing the office work. And we have nurses who are somewhere in village units. And those nurses somehow naturally got extended powers. And maybe we started at some point manipulating with definitions and bringing some rules and training. So the survey was anonymous.
So maybe some of the nurses have heard that something's wrong, but still those nurses who consider that this is cool and something's changed, we have much more of those in comparison with those who don't think so. How does it happen in practice, in my doctoral practice, not like as a manager, but I had a nurse and we were sitting like separately with her. We could see each other like once in a few weeks, but we were doing the same job, the same task, and it was a good call that it is working when my nurse started like scolding me. She was calling me and she says like, okay, Nazar Serheyevich, you had that lady, where do we have the referral to mammography? I'm saying like, okay, you're gonna have it right now. So it depends on the team very often, because those teams who are really good in it, well, as far as it's possible in the legal framework, and some teams, well, they are not, they don't really want to do that. And for the doctor, he doesn't want to lose the nurse who is doing some work. And the nurse in her years of work is used to that somehow, and she doesn't want to change anything in this life. So for me, that's about the opportunities. I will explain why. Now I will mention briefly what I mean by this. Before entering the university, I graduated medical college. I've been working as a nurse for 3 years in surgery block and also like saving the infants, newborns. Important experience. When I've been working with a patient, the doctor was giving recommendations, and I was doing that according to the recommendations. And I had an opinion that maybe I know a bit more about the patient than the doctor has the time to observe him. And I had this opinion after I graduated the university. And I was lucky to become the head, lucky, so to say, kind of, to become the head of the institution. I was thinking of the medical nurse, and I love this profession so much that some doctors even envy, like, why do I treat nurses this way? Because I do understand that this is a colossal experience that no one never maybe noticed enough. And as of today, the primary medical help and the role of nurse in it, it's about efficiency, accessibility, and quality. I will explain why. Because the primary medical support, it requires new competencies, new approaches, and the prevention course appeared where we can involve nurses actively. And for sure, the new forms of taking care of the patient emerged. More chronic conditions, and the attention of the nurse is might be much more efficient. And all these roles of nurse, I guess that is how it happened in my historical experience, that I am happy even today that I can talk about those things that I love doing together with nurses. I am listening to their opinion, maybe even more than the opinion of other staff. So I have really good collaboration with them, and I know for sure that I will receive the feedback, which is very valuable, very, practically oriented. So for me, the nurse in the story of primary care is the story that has revolutionary kind of issue. What about clinical autonomy? Did it happen? Maybe it's happening, or what is the stage of this process? Well, of course, in parallel, the nurse is changing as well. She feels that, and thanks to projects, because they feel support. They feel the environment where they are developing. And of course, they want to achieve new competencies. They are gaining new competencies. They have these new competencies. And we can hear today's discussion how actively they can stand for their opinion and share experience. Well, this is already happening. Okay, Tetiana, in your opinion, what did happen, and do you feel the clinical autonomy? Well, what's happened in order to say that clinically autonomous nurses? Well, I cannot say that for sure. So when nurses are with the doctor and during traditional examination, all the decisions are made by doctor. It is clear because there is traditional system, right? When the nurse is seeing patients on her own, well, as a nurse, we expanded rights because USAID project, it's also about autonomous nurses because we are trainers in the project, and later I will tell in more details about that. There are nurses who are meeting people on their own. So when nurse is meeting the person herself, then she can make decision herself, because if there are conditions that are threatening the condition of a person, then she's making a decision where she's gonna refer the patient. When there is condition that doesn't require an intervention from the side of the doctor, so for example, to consult the person who wants to quit smoking or increase physical activity or control their condition and like hypertonic, etc., high blood pressure, etc. And if the nurse can cope with that, then she makes the decision that this person doesn't have to be referred to the doctor. And maybe their like cholesterol and other issues can be related to lack of physical activity. So we are nurses, we can make our decisions, and those are our decisions that we are making independently. Thank you. Yes, please. In terms of communication, of course, the nurse has made a lot of things. She is making like quick interventions. She sees the patient first and she is talking to the patient. And a lot of such things are result in the field of communication, that is for sure. And some stories, some issues from the doctor, well, they cannot solve that in legal field. This is the issue of time. But to talk and to tell and to support the patient, this is being done already. Thank you. Thank you. Let us come to education. Yeah, well, not basic education, but if you want this to be clinically independent, then it's the process of improvement all the time. How to cope with the barrier between theory and practice in order for the knowledge that already exists to be practical and useful. Antonina. Thank you. The barrier. Well, we have to cope with the barriers because there is no good practice without good base or good theory, and also like the theory, dry theory without practice has no result. Therefore, I think that on pre-diploma and post-diploma level, well, how we are teaching and what we are teaching, it should be modern. It should depend on the requirements and like as healthcare, and probably this is implemented with the help of communication between the practicing nurses or practicing doctors and also medical educators, and only in good collaboration we can make product of good quality and we can cope with that gap that might be created between theory and practice. Educational programs and practical story. Well, I've started with the fact that there is good integration of educational program into practice. So we are looking at the field and we are adapting the program. Second thing I would like to mention is that it's practically oriented approach, and I really like the fact that practitioners are now involved to forming the educational programs. I would also like to say that still this is implementation of competencies in modern life. These are our soft skills. Yeah, it's also a very important component. Then practice-oriented approaches, those are simulation stories that are being implemented, then also various educational trainings. That is everything about the integration of education into practice. Also the feedback. It's very important. And well, I guess that's it out of the things that I think of. Yeah, then Vlad. I would like to return to such a term as clinical autonomy, and again, today we had a discussion whether Ukrainian there is some like substitution term for facilitators. Generalist also. Usually if you open the document classifier of professions in the field of healthcare, two big categories in there: generalists and specialists. Generalists are those, very often they are called doctors of primary medical care, like pediatrists, general therapists, those who are working with primary care. The thing is that in our country, usually we had 90% of specialists. Well, when I came into the profession, it was such a percentage, even 90+% of specialists and approximately 7% doctors back then they were like therapists and pediatrists for the region. So all our system was built on illnesses. Yeah, so the specialist is about the illnesses. Generalist sees a person. So when we are talking about clinical autonomy, specialists will see the possibility to say what the diagnosis is, and generalists will see the opportunity to talk to a person. So let us imagine the usual day of the general practitioner, 20 people who are coming. How many times will you use an ultrasound machine, etc.? So clinical skills and everything. This is the look of the specialist. So we are coming back to the trap of specialized help. But what we will do with each of the 20 patients? We will consult them. We will talk to them. where are we taught how to consult a person? Well, the nurse. Can she herself consult the person? Yes, of course. She can talk about extra weight, about how many patients do we have with high blood pressure, right? At least 300, 500 people per usual practice. And yeah, how many times were they consulted about the blood pressure, how to measure that arterial blood pressure, etc. Our system is not created for that. So when we are talking about the autonomy of a medical nurse, it means that she can make her own decisions and consult people. Yeah, and education will accordingly that these nurses, they, just like Antonina mentioned, the theory without the practice is dead. Yeah, theory is dead without the practice, and practice without the theory is dangerous. So, in order not to have this gap, it's important for the nurses who underwent trainings in different programs, in different projects, we need to scale that so that later on it becomes a usual part of educational systems and to engage those nurses as trainers, teachers at the institutions for education. Thanks. I will speak about education, but later on, please remind me about your experience. Again, autonomous experience of nurse a bit later. As for education, I would like to mention that in the document that we mentioned today, Strategic Directions of Development of Nursing, we are seeing this approach that the nurse should teach the nurse. And we do understand that the doctors should teach certain disciplines, but practice-oriented, profiled nursing specialties have to be taught by the teachers, those who have their own nursing background, and that will be a much better result. But in order to do that, we need to conduct a huge work so that more and more nurses are encouraged to enter the master's degree and other levels, because as of now we have only 3 doctors of philosophy. We need more nurses. We need more doctors of philosophy, but not only scientific kind of to get the scientific degree, but also to go in for teaching. And one of the disadvantages is low salary, because at the universities the salary is low and only enthusiasts go to college because it's even lower. And the key importance is to ensure the proper clinical preparation. We were focusing on preparing doctors to have university hospitals, to have access to patients on clinical basis and integration of educational processes, to have simulation centers at medical universities well equipped, and the same approaches we are recommending and we will promote also to have that in nursing specialties at colleges. And we already have some examples of colleges where really cool simulation centers are, and they have good cooperation with healthcare institutions, and I won't be surprised if medicine colleges will have their own university or nurse clinics. Thank you. Okay, we have a few more questions. Yeah, I will add about the education and the way how the nurses are being tested. I think it's one of not many things that I agree with in this document. Actually, it's really important. I will explain why. Because now quite often we are saying like training and otoscopy, ophthalmoscopy, and to develop the competencies, etc. But actually nurses, they study that in college, and very often they are taught with high quality. So they are coming to patients in hospitals, they have good simulation trainings, but later on it is forgotten. Why? Because the nurse has no stimulus for education. Well, she might just sit in one room for 40 years, not to study anywhere, and nothing will happen. Therefore, CDP for nurses is incredibly important. I see Antonina totally disagrees. We want to listen. Finally, we will have a discussion. Yeah, just 1 second. We will have a discussion. I disagree with the fact, like, not that they are forgetting, but they don't have where to use the knowledge. They don't have the possibility to use the skills. And that is why, indeed, they are forgetting, no matter how much you know. People are forgetting that because they have nowhere to use that. Yeah, I think I would like to add, because there was emotional reaction. First, my educational experience as a nurse, And I guess when I got the degree of a nurse, I realized that the functions that the nurse has to just do what the doctor says. I thought it's not enough, so I'd received my doctoral degree. And well, in terms of education and up to practical issues of health, right? Today's programs allow to teach the nurse to many things like electrocardiography, interpretation, and many, many other things, very complicated things that, as of now, not even each of the doctors of secondary level who's not using will use and know. So the question is, how can they implement that in practice? Do they have kind of the powers to do that? Do they have the opportunity for further development on the level of postgraduate education? So actually, this direction was strengthening, and I guess it gave one of the opportunities, like to expand the powers of the nurse in the framework of the program for nurses. They received the first format of the opportunity, like to deepen their knowledge, and there is interest. Why do we lose that? Well, probably because that it was not included in the functions of the nurse to do all of that. If I don't need this, I will not do that. And I will not waste my time, resource, physical, psycho-emotional to continue something if I don't need that in practice. In order to ensure that, probably we need to prescribe not only in educational standards but also in professional standards that people are working on right now, clear competencies that have to be and things that have to be done by the nurse of certain direction. And only then we will not lose this connection between theory and practice. Yeah, I think it will be fair for any profession. Everything that we are not using, we are forgetting very quickly at really high speed. At the end, one of the important topics, in my opinion, is how the transmission of powers is happening and what are people doing when they are giving like their kind of responsibilities. We've heard lots of stories that in some institutions nurses started bullying people. So what kind of risk it is to take the powers on them? And somewhere there were problems that doctors are not ready to give away their responsibilities, and they feel really jealous regarding that. But well, how do you try to prevent that? What do you do in your organization on the level of corporate culture, I guess, in order to avoid this? Yeah, Alexandra, I start with you. Well, indeed, we need to start with corporate culture. These are not just loud words, it's a supportive environment. And first of all, we need to talk, and maybe we've discussed that already, the values and mission. We need to talk about that. Yeah, how that was happening at our institution. Yes, we formulated these things, but it was important for me how each person understands these values regarding themselves. I was interested, like, how do they understand this regarding themselves and regarding the patient, in terms of the patient. And it's very good because you understand the mindset, you understand the potential also, with whom you can have some positive results and who needs to work on that still. So culture and values. Next, I would talk about the engagement in the processes of decision making. That's important for me when the person can use his or her potential and be useful for a team.
Also, what is important? Personal development, giving a chance to people to grow as they want to. It's about openness and respect towards opinions of everybody. Also, recognition and respect. So this whole thing creates an environment where each and every can manifest oneself. And projects strengthening the PHC function, such as like autonomous nurse, for example, in such environment, it's clear that there is a goal and we have to reach the goal. So we have such a powerful element of STEM potential as nurses. Then it goes logical, it goes organically implemented. Maybe easy sounds too high, but there is no oppression, definitely. There is no resistance, definitely. Starting with managerial things, when managers can just switch the option and shape the supportive culture and integrate the supportive culture in your projects. Nazar. Initially, when the project started, it was 2020, as far as I remember. So when it looked really unclear for people, and many doctors and nurses couldn't understand what could that be. Month by month, year by year, there was more clarity. But again, we started with the leaders of changes. Those people who were ready to try, ready to learn, ready to make mistakes, because sometimes these were some failures even, yes, so more of successes we had. Therefore, people who were initially pessimistic towards it, they started expressing curiosity. We as managers gave every nurse an opportunity to become fully autonomous. Every nurse, even initially, was registered in eHealth with one's own personal office, and each had a digital signature and all the data entered only with the specific signature. Well, we had very active nurses, and we thought that these nurses will start entering a lot of data and everything else. And others will just stay passive, or just putting tick in the box. We never demanded anyone to, like there were no indicators demanded, and it was surprising for us that those nurses we expected to be passive, they started doing this on their own. And we have, let's say, logistic limitations. Our units does not give any nurse a chance to sit in personal office, so we started with the bigger municipal units. We created a zone, as I called it, 2-in-1, we call it. So first the office with computer, where you can work, and the second office, one for the unit for a nurse with extended powers. We first tried to make some schedules, making shifts, but it didn't work because of certain nuances. So that's why we decided we told nurses to decide how it was better for them to work autonomously. There are some practices, yes, which are more indicative, with more load for nurse, somewhere there is less load for nurse. This year we were reporting to Department of Health, 9-month report there was, and this year I was handling statistic reports, and I submitted template 20, the table, how many appointments nurses did handle on their own. More than 9,000 of such appointments. 3,000 something in the unit. Department calls me with a scandal, telling, what's in your report? They say. They told me, look at the first column. More than 9,000. Almost 10. In the unit, 3.3 thousand. 6,000, where are these? Autonomous appointments in the unit. It cannot be that. I say, how? This is not allowed anywhere. Well, but it works. It's just you who sent that report. Okay, I will send only that report, so I said. And then they tell me you will respond to ministry. So the report is accepted. Okay. Just with what Nazar said, innovations. Yes, we have facilities that implement this. Let's think of this change curve. 3% of innovators, then early supporters or followers, then the majority of followers. We have conservative bloc. Yeah. Innovator hits the conservative guy. Yeah. In our project, when there was a need to implement the approach, we tried to do it systemically. 4 categories of key players in the system. We defined chief doctors. Without them, we won't have autonomous nurses. Chief doctor is the one who has to encourage everyone else to take part, then doctors. The key task is to minimize resistance and show it to doctors that you'll be like separately from nurses. Not everybody agrees, and each of these groups are in different locations on the curve. Some doctors already decided many years ago. There are doctors who will never allow nurse to enter any data in eHealth. Group 3, nurses. We need to encourage them and show them that they can. So this is how we call the session. Nurses can. Showing that they can consult. They should not be delegated. It's already there. It's already regulated. Characteristics are changing in the process, and they will have more of these formalized powers we talk about so much. Group 4, patients. Not every patient wants to come to a nurse. We will have patients who are ready to accept it, and those who will say never, only to the doctor. So we need to work with these 4 groups. It's about systemic approach. About the report. The role of nurse. In our facility, we have this practice feedback from patient. Next to each office, we have a QR code, and you can actually leave your feedback there. Even before the project, at initial stage of project, mostly feedback was about doctor. Good doctor, bad doctor, great doctor, we're satisfied, and everything else. In 2 years, we started getting feedback about the nurse. We saw that something was changing, and this year, in summer, I got the first feedback. Thank you to nurse Oksana. What does it mean? Not just a nurse, but I know the name of my nurse, and like not so many of those messages, but we have it now. It means that nurses are respected by patients. It's called visibility. So previously, nurse was not visible in the system. Now people know what is the office, what is the name of the nurse. If we put these names on the walls next to offices, this would make them even more visible. Thank you, Tetiana. I want to say thank you. I've been saying thank you a lot to Project. You actually gave us a chance. You gave those people who aspire changes an opportunity to develop. Before that, we didn't have it. On visibility, I support Vladyslav because nurse has become visible. And for us, this has a huge importance. For our facility, nurses who wanted to have more powers, wanted to become autonomous, they have extended powers. It works differently when it comes to relations in team. Somewhere doctors give more powers to nurses, and the nurses can do more. Somewhere less. But we had 5 nurses. Valentina 7. But nurses are joining. Okay? Nurses are engaging, so it's interesting for them. In our facility, if we know something, if we got some knowledge, we always share with each other. It works because nurses become more confident. Speaking of these intensive courses in Tomar, nurses start sharing instantly after they return. That's how it works when you have the environment which promotes you to develop, and it's good. But still, many things depend on communication in a team. because truly, doctor is the boss so far. Maybe we'd love to have some practices, but it's hard to negotiate with the doctor, and those who want that, they join us. But for those who want it, they have all the conditions. We have offices for appointments and appointment schedule. So facility does everything for these nurses to evolve and grow and have patience and work with them. Thank you so much, colleagues. Okay, dear audience, just one short question. We have time for one short question only.
Дякую щиро. Ігор Заставний, сімейний лікар.
Ihor Zastavnyi, family doctor. What is your attitude to clause that they want to establish 400 declarations per nurse? If positively, what problem this should solve? If negative, with one word? It's a question to everyone. Colleagues?
Я можу почати. Стосовно
So regarding the norms, so this is secondary, primary, what should this nurse do? If this is not described now in a document, communication will not help, because we have a huge number of smokers in our practice, yes? Do we have a registry of these people? One of the indicators used, like in UK, how many consultations or fast interventions with these smokers? We don't know how many of these. We don't do that. And nobody knows. If we reorient our system to prevent the disease and assess the PHC when people don't go to hospitals with strokes and heart attacks, these interventions would be visible then. To have resource for it, doctor won't have time to consult 2,000 patients every day. None of the doctors can do it. Respectively, if general practice is the easiest profession if you do it bad, and the hardest if you do it properly. So if you don't do it, and nobody sees that. So we don't work with people with these bad habits. We don't prevent it. If we don't demand it, if we don't create these requirements, then people will not understand why do we need the nurse. If we describe this, if we require this, doctors will say, how can we find time? There was a survey in the project, controversial. On one hand, doctors say we are overloaded, and I want the nurse to have a separate appointment, but no. Never separately. Let her work with us. So when some powers are delegated to nurses, they minimize the load, but they still don't recognize this. I work with people who are addicts, and Frogestrom test and motivational consulting. Maybe it's worth first to formalize that, and then doctors to decide on nurses. Is it better to formalize it and then drag it to the norm? Fit it into the norm. We can take international practices. Those countries like Estonia, where there was one compulsory nurse, they pay for a second one to extend the opportunities to work with patients, okay? The clause we have now is not okay. So, especially where we have monopractice, it's a wrong thing. I love the previous one with percentage, 50%, and I think we should raise the bar. My opinion is that doctor autonomously can handle 60-70% of patients. If you have more than 60% of patients, you definitely need assistance, for sure. I know your opinion on this, but I'll give you my opinion. So for me, it's about areas and potential, and I'm sorry for your doctor's potential. I feel sorry for it. Where nurse could have strengthened your activity just to talk, you have to direct yourself at other direction. A nurse will do it better with some other stuff. This distribution will strengthen you. That's what I'm talking about. First of all, we in MOH have to communicate with doctors, with nurses, that if we introduce nurses with extended powers, it's not about taking the bread out of doctor's mouth or taking one's authority. No, it's about giving doctor extra time for more complicated cases, for cases one can use to grow as a professional. But this will raise the nurse's role, of course. How can we minimize the load for the nurse, for one not to turn simply into the secretary, but act according to competencies? I've had this idea for a long time. Maybe at the TVT level, we need to introduce like medical assistant position, who will help with organizing, entering in e-health, making calls. Nurse should not do that. Nurse can handle more complicated manipulations. Healthcare is evolving, and the profession's content has to evolve. We gave a task to nursing center to engage in this activity because the law tells that. For the threshold load to be drafted for the nurses, and we offered to engage universities and partners and colleges and professional communities. Please engage. Depending on which specialization there is, we'll have approaches to define thresholds like hours, number of appointments, number of manipulations, and so on. Okay, I'm the only nurse. We speak today more about development of nurse, per se, the appointment. But today nurses have many options where one can develop, not just being a nurse at appointments, but being a trainer as well as USAID team nurses, or a facilitator of peer group. Nurse can be also a speaker. Nurse can make presentations, so nurse can distribute the experience in various formats. I have some very basic junior specialist education, but I'm among you, I'm in this room. And we had networking recently of peer groups and members of these groups, and I had this clairvoyance cookie. Success will not come to you. You have to come to success on your own. You have to reach it on your own. Your colleagues, stop sitting on those chairs and, growing roots in these. Get some new knowledge and get some new competencies. Try some new stuff. Try to become a nurse with extended powers. Try to be an autonomous nurse. Knock at all doors.
The third year in a row, we've never had such an opportunity, so that somebody is so interested in us as nurses. So that's enough just sitting. Let us do something to be visible. Let us just understand that we can make some decisions, that indeed we are specialists and we need this development, and this development is given to us, so let us use this. Thank you. Well, actually, I offer to stand on this inspiring speech, but according to the right of the person with the microphone and moderator, I would like to say that the pilot medical system with expanded powers, it's about flexibility. There was a huge amount of options, and anything that are destroying flexibility, unfortunately, to make everyone like to give powers to medical nurse. It was about destroying flexibility. We are working a lot in Ukrainian centers for public health with the communities where they cannot cover even like one nurse because of objective reasons. And to be honest, I can't imagine how they are gonna cover the requirement to have two nurses. And at least because of this, it looks really weird for me. And like any directive things, they make system just more complicated and kind of more strict. So we don't need to move according to directives or some universal things, but we are very complicated and very different country. We cannot compare the primary center in Kyiv, Kolomyia, and near the border of Belarus and in the Kharkiv region. You cannot compare those. The universal laws will not work there. So the universal approach here, in my opinion, is not the best solution. But we are coming back to Tetiana's speech. Thank you, everyone, for work. Thank you, dear colleagues. Because the last thesis was about flexibility. We will show our flexibility in the program of event. We did not have any breaks, so we won't have it. So we will ask the team to help us to make some changes that we have to have till our next activity. And Tanya will help to do the activity for all of us together. And we turned off the electricity not because of the air raid alert. Yeah, but let us spend this time efficiently. Close your eyes. We are helping you to close your eyes because we turned off the electricity, the light. We will hear the bells. Yeah, 12 bells. Yeah, that it's because of the new year. 2025 comes for the plans that we've been mentioning today. And in this 2025, miraculous things are happening. Your colleagues, just like you, they are motivated for development. You have wonderfully supported environment for all of your initiatives and plans. The things that you couldn't do in previous years, 2024 or previous 10 years, all the things that you were postponing, in a magic way, somehow they are implemented with the help of your colleagues. Those who are working in medical education, you have students who are motivated, who are doing all the homework, and they understand all of your explanations from the first time. And then they are not asking you about like what happened during the previous lesson. Your managers don't say like, why wasn't you at work last week? Why didn't you sit in your office? Because your management is supporting your participation in conferences. They find financial opportunities to pay your trips abroad. You have the work-life balance. You are coming to work after you had enough sleep. During work, you don't think like, oh my God, what a trash is happening. But you think, oh my God, everything's so great. I love people I'm working with. They are so inspiring. You're leaving your work with everything done, and it happens at 3 or 4 p.m. At the same day, you know. And this is happening every day in 2025. Nurses have more powers. Family doctors are happy because of their development. Katerina, you want to add something? Yeah, I want to add that it will be very hard for me to wake people up and to return them to our program. Ukrainian-Swiss project is making more podcasts, and you're listening those in your free time starting after 3 p.m. We are conducting very good events, and we are not killing ourselves when we are preparing those events, and later on we are not exhausted afterwards after we've conducted those. You have very interesting studies and researches, and you are presenting that on all possible conferences. And on top, this picture has the good things that you need in your personal life. For example, your children are graduating school with super high level, and they are entering the higher institution that you are, as parents, are dreaming of, and your children are following your advice on choosing the profession, the adolescents are telling parents, like, dear parents, we love you and we are ready to do everything you say with excitement. And those who have smaller children eat everything you give them. They sleep well and they behave properly. And we meet you in a year in 2025 again at the Conference of Achievements and Further Steps, having enough rest, excited with a lot of implemented achievements and with the plans for 2026. And in parallel, this next year ends up with Donetsk, Luhansk, part of Zaporizhia region, and the Crimea become Ukrainian. Yeah, this is Swiss project, peace building. You know, we are following this. And we did not interrupt our conferences because of the blackouts or air raid alerts. Everything is peaceful, calm, and we are a flourishing country with VAT 100% plus because we are all working perfectly and the production is working. Everyone has high salary, infrastructure is developing. It is being rebuilt, the roads are good, the air is clean, everyone's healthy, and people just come to family doctor in order to work on prevention, vaccination, and get mental support in those moments when you have to leave work an hour later, that is at 4:30 p.m. Here I offer us to end our visualization. Yeah, it seems to me that the table is there, the chairs are there. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. It was incredibly nice. I truly hope that many of the things that you mentioned that will happen, and we will meet you next year and we will communicate about that because we will be very happy to hear about all of your implemented plans and ideas. We will be with you. We will just look at that and we will follow. So I am planning to work with you still. We have two conversations that we would like to have with you. This is not the format of panel discussions, as you probably could have guessed from the changes that we've had. Those will be two brief conversations, but two very important topics from our point of view. Both topics we want to discuss, they appeared in the second phase in the project, and both came to us from different experience. So I offer to start with discussing the topic of development of organizational culture, and we invited the consultant of the project and head of the School of Service and Communication of Medical Network Dobrobut. Yeah, so I invite her for this conversation. Well, actually, I would like to start with a very brief pre-story, so to say, how this idea came in terms of working on organizational culture. Well, traditionally, this doesn't come out of nowhere. Yeah, I will sit on this chair. It was our plan. So, actually, the idea, just like the logics of today's program, the idea of development of organizational culture comes from the project on expanding the role of the nurse. We've been communicating a lot with different institutions. We are asking them about the challenges that they are facing in terms of expanding their role. And we've heard the issue of salary and work conditions and all the rest. But altogether with that, we realize that probably it's not the only one thing that is impacting, but there are some other things that we can impact together. So having researched this direction a bit, we found a lot of information and researches that say that organizational culture and atmosphere at the institution play a very important role in all of that, and those are the top reasons that follow the hygiene. And in this moment, we started thinking of what can we do? How can we help the institutions in creating this atmosphere and culture that will be really good for implementing some changes, for interaction, cooperation, and open communication, etc. Therefore, the direction of development of organizational culture came into our work directions. As a matter of fact, I'm offering now to talk about how to create organizational culture. What is that about? What does it consist of? What are the principles of forming this organizational culture? And typically, when we are coming up to some new topic, we start with the assessment or like audit, if you wish. And here it was also a challenge in a way because from one side it's obvious that we need this assessment. From the other side, in order to get a good assessment of high quality, we need to have honest and open audit. So from your point of view, how do we do that in this format, like open and sincere format? Yes, thank you very much, Daryna. And it's really nice to see familiar faces. I will start with a brief story about why, in general, do we need something, like to do something with organizational culture. Some of you faced this story when, during one of the events in the framework of our project, one of the colleagues asked me at the end, well, Tanya, everything that you're saying is cool and okay, but what do we need that? Well, we have enough of everything. We have this and that. Why do we need your mission and values, and why do we need to create something that we can continue working with later on? So from answering this question, this is where I start. Before I say how we do that, I will say why do we need to do that. Organizational culture is just like the lane, so some of you already know this comparison. So there's grass, some flowers growing on the grass. Yeah, something is growing next to each other. Somewhere we have some like other plants. Everything is growing well, and sometimes it's even pleasant to your eye. But for example, you're the owner of that lane and you have your own goals. Well, someone has a goal for people to go there for a picnic, like the couples who are in love. Some wants children to play there. And depending on your goal, you're building the plan of that lane. Where there should be some roads, should it be quiet in here or should it be noisy? And the leaders, and now I am saying consciously leaders, not like heads or bosses, because the role of co-creator of organizational culture is more the role of a leadership than the role of the manager, and they obtain the role of a gardener who is looking what has to be watered. Where do we have some bad plants and how can we avoid it from growing like too big? So organizational culture and values, in any case, all of you have it. And there is no question like why do we need to create something in order to work with that later on? It exists. And you need to understand how much does it correspond to your goals? How much does it serve the goals? And what can we make to optimize that so that it can serve even more? So I will come back to the issue like how do we conduct the audit? Here I would like to divide it into two parts. The first part is sincereness of the leader and the head with a specialist or a team who were invited to that audit. They should be very sincere in their goals and requests, because there is no good or bad organizational culture. Just like organizational values, there are no good or bad values. There are some values that ensure your goals or not. So the good audit starts with sincere manager who is honestly saying about the goals that we need to achieve. For example, if we need, like in the nearest period of time, people to agree to work overtime, and we need that to be the organic decision and for it to happen. Well, I am sorry when people in the final of all of that, they don't want to die, but they want to continue working. So this goal, well, should be mentioned sincerely, which is the subject of this audit. Yeah, we need to understand how people are interacting. We need to understand what are the written rules of this interaction, to understand where there are potential risks of like toxical parts in this interaction, and understand how do we form the desirable behavioral norms. So for example, as for like our project, okay, it's obvious that in order to implement the role of the nurse successfully with expanded like powers, we need to cultivate such traits in the team that be ready to delegate, being initiative, and being ready to study or to learn. So the subject of audit will be the task to understand how ready people are now to delegate, what is impacting their initiativeness, and whether they want or not to learn, and what should we do in order for them to want. Then the next part comes up of our audit, preparing for an audit. Well, of course, first there's in-depth interview with the managers, but it's more about the goals, and actually how to understand whether the moods of people are in line with that. So here we are talking about the team, and no matter what, as whether the team is specialized or not, well, here the role of the leader of the head is very important, and on this stage a lot of things can be seen. Because what can we do? We can come up to people and we can say like, okay, tomorrow the person will come to us and we need to answer the questions. We are all coming, we are all sitting and answering. And this is felt like they are sitting and they are saying everything is cool, everything is fine, everything is just wonderful. Well, this stage of communication to a team, why is that important to talk? Why is that important to sincerely mention what kind of information do we want to receive, that it is needed in order to improve the processes, to avoid burnout, or to simplify life somehow? This is a very important part of audit. And the task of the specialist. Can you hear me? Okay. As for the agreement, you made an example of like working overtime. Yeah, if we need to do that, then we do that. Now we are living in the conditions of constant stress and constant like workload. And even though the experts on organizational structure, they are saying that it was typical culture for Ukrainians to work overtime and achieve because of working overtime. So now it looks like we cannot really allow ourselves to do that because, well, mental condition of people is different and the conditions on the labor market are different. And how do we build organizational culture under these conditions that has certain balance between being humans and professional requirements?
Thank you, Daryna. I would say here that this is quite an ambiguous thing. Well, people are exhausted, they don't sleep properly with the permanent stress, and just giving 200% of result they can't. On the other hand, we all do understand what we have to do where we are. We have to do as much as we can, and we can't just afford relaxing. When we have heavy shellings, what people write in like Facebook in the morning, I'm still commuting to my work, I'm still on my way to work. We're afraid even to speak like, I don't want to go to work or I can't. So, the first answer for your question when it comes to manager and leader, give people an understanding that being tired is okay. Because if you don't shape this support, then toxicity will arise. When person is afraid of openly saying, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and one accumulates passive aggression, which grows into unwanted behavioral models like sabotage, discussing the processes like in the couloirs elsewhere. One's initiative just disperses. So people first have sometimes to be told openly that exhaustion and fatigue, it's not something that makes you a bad professional. You don't become a traitor for your team. And it's important to recognize here now, I cannot. It's not weakness. It's obligatory to recognize that to be able later. In post-COVID period, we had this global trend like bring all of yourself to work. Before COVID, there was a vision, you know. We go to work just to do our work. So all our problems, we keep that at home. But imagine if we, with such a vision, if we'll be able to work now, when people have relatives in occupation on the front line, missing. If it's really possible for a person just to ignore that and just go to work. Next manager step is creating a place at work where people feel they can share something they live. And saying I'm afraid, I am worried, before we go to the environment and this mutual support. Okay, so the feedback, okay? Being afraid to tell, it tells us that simply this culture is not flourishing. How to build a feedback culture? A non-toxic one, the one that motivates, the one that will promote development. So first of all, the feedback, we should stop associating feedback with punishment, with some punitive things. How to make sure that we break this association? Build a system for the feedback, not to look like you just take person out of the process and start the conversation. To have regular meetings, individual meetings, that these individual meetings and conversations happen not only because there's a failure, but just to ask, how is it going? Like, what's happening with the process? And I'll speak of practical steps. What tangible can we integrate when we work with this culture? A template of meetings to be designed, individual meetings, and design a system. How often should these take place? Another thing that is important. A facility manager will never cover that system alone. So, in feedback, cascading is important. You have to engage heads of units, informal leaders, and just composing a matrix. Periodicity, which people we do meet. Frequency of questions, which questions. Remember that it's worth having once a year and a half to launch the survey, anonymous survey. With some facilities, actually, we implement this now, where people have a chance to express themselves and speak of something they will not maybe be ready to speak at meetings. Delegating and trusting is important. I face this information that trust to leader is an important factor for the team to be super engaged. At the same time, we have data telling us. So we usually speak of important topics. When we speak about financial reward as a motivator, if we speak about organizational culture, we need to also analyze its component of financial motivation. With the data that we've managed to find, these claim that non-financial, non-monetary motivation gives a larger impact and long-term impact compared to financial. you have experience with other organizations, okay? Give us some examples of non-monetary stimuli which really become important and relevant to use in HCFs. I can't say there were some life hacks or tricks or whatever, some secrets. It's really simple. When we speak about the non-financial stimuli, what is really important for people now? Feeling safe, first of all. And it also is about emotional safety. When we speak about big commercial organizations like group of psychological support, yoga sessions, it's about your budget, yeah? It's limited by your budget only. But just coming and openly saying, okay, I need a weekend or I need an additional leave, creating an atmosphere where people are not afraid, where they feel as humans. It's possible to be done everywhere. Recognition, and it's not about certificates or awards. What I heard, by the way, from Oksana today at the panel. To be noticed, to be visible, to be heard. People want to be visible, and people want to understand that their contribution in general goals is appreciated. So it's worth, everybody knows about that, everybody remembers, but it's worth turning these into processes. Okay. Create a group where managers, a messenger group, or leaders say thank you regularly to the team, and where a team can say thank you to each other for some specific things, for something they see every day in each other's activities. An important non-financial stimulus is when people can come on their own and say what they need in their professional development. Because we talk a lot about motivation, how to motivate a team. But you cannot motivate a team. Motivation is really individual. You can motivate people. To motivate them, you need to know what motivates each person. When you create this environment, so it's about the quality of feedback and motivation, where people know that they are regularly asked, what do you need? And if people can openly say what exactly they need, this is about non-monetary motivation. If you feel that someone reaches, let's say, a glass ceiling in one's capacity, you have to create opportunities for their horizontal growth. It's again individual. Someone wants or needs to be ignored at some point, okay? Not to be touched. Give one a buffer zone. Someone requires other things. Talk to people regularly, systemically, to feel that and know that. I'm coming back to a metaphor, garden metaphor, and the weeds. What weeds we have in the culture? You spoke of simple steps, like how can we eliminate weeds? Okay. If you speak about weeds, I think we speak of toxic people. Manifestations of toxic behavior. I'm not labeling anyone. According to the studies, one toxic employee that comes into a team can decrease productivity of team by 15%. One person only. Imagine if we have several. What becomes a reason for toxic behavior to emerge? First of all, passive aggression that emerges as a result of when a person simply cannot express one's opinion or share. Secondly, a gap between what leader declares and something one is doing. I'll speak of values, which may be just mottos on the wall, but in behavior, people see different things. And this is a strong trigger for toxicity to emerge. What we declare, we do. Toxic task setting. There is a task, a goal to verify, identify very quickly, and we set this task for people, like do it very fast. When you set a task, you always need to give specific parameters, but only how. Because when this task is over, when it's complete, you don't want your team to hate each other, okay? You don't want to generate hatred, okay? You want these people to continue working. So, be very clear. How should people perform the task in super emergency force majeure environment, okay? Intense environment. Even at the level of steps. What is the latest hour to give calls? Like, tell that. Next thing, which can lead to toxicity, when you change your priorities too often. Okay, people get prepared and then instantly you say an opposite direction, and it makes people confused. It may not depend on you, I understand this, and you have to communicate it somehow to the team. My advice is tell it like it is, explain it as it is. Just tell it. Don't just set a goal, but give the reasons and discuss the reasons which could have led to this change, and give people a chance to speak, to respond. Okay, so if we go to specific steps, I would say regular surveys, anonymous, and individual meetings. Cascading decisions from the manager to the unit. Because you can have a gathering of unit heads and they just say not enough money, too much work, and everything that you mentioned, it just, nobody hears that. People who need to hear that, they don't. So, teaching with your own example. Tell people how to provide proper feedback, and also the mid-level managerial proper feedback is important. Okay, we are out of time again. So, organizational culture cannot be covered, of course, in 20 minutes. I think we should try to draw a line, maybe to conclude somehow. So, it didn't work with a garden, but maybe a meadow, at least. Why do we do that? The question we'll have to ask. What for? And recently I stumbled upon data that helped me to structure this answer. What for when it comes to organizational culture? Why is this important and beneficial for organizations? Yes. Organizational culture is always there, but we may simply ignore it. It doesn't mean it's absent. And it's important. It's important in Ukraine also. You know, WorkUA survey tells that 82% of candidates, before they go to work, they try to check who their employer is. So we need to shape the culture that will attract the employees we'd love to have in our organization. On the other hand, in the project, we set a goal to help shape the culture which will assist our teams, not for them to survive, but to create opportunities for development. Thank you for helping with that, and thank you for clearing that for us. when we shape this organizational culture. For deeper conversations, we need to plan longer discussions. And of course, go deeper into each of aspects. Maybe some reflections or questions. Maybe just one. Ethics and confidentiality will be the next. Okay. I can't answer like which results, what is the experience, just to draw the line. I'll give you a brief answer to a question of Daryna. What for? In 2 words. To retain people, to keep people directly and indirectly, you know, people in the teams, and also retain their spirit and their engagement and their feeling of safety in the team. Thank you. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you for staying with us. So, Ihor Zastavnyi will be our next, and Anastasia Khodan will be with us now. Practitioners, the co-founders of Iryna practice, so members of SMU board, and on Saturday we'll call Ihor the ambassador of peer group, yeah. Okay. Please take your seats. As far as I understand, I need to give you more of space to talk, okay? Okay. We'll start with a story. Where did it come from? And Tetiana started with a story. Message from Oleksandr, Prokopchuk on stethoscopes. Okay, did somebody come and tell? Like in the story in the previous one? I maybe will put it in the wrong way. We'll ask Tetiana if she remembers it better. Once we had a training together with the project, and I remember a case in private conversation with Tetiana that there is a problem as confidentiality. Maybe not everybody knows about this problem, not all the patients, because me and Ihor, we discussed this, how to explain to people properly what problem does the project solve. We'll discuss it. Maybe not everybody knows what the problem is. And we were called confidentiality. And later, well, time passed, and I think this idea was in the heads of so many people. It's like rotating. And we expected to start working with the project, and one of the participants approached us today and said, oh, a couple of years ago I registered my facility that we wanted to be pilot one. Okay, I thought that's a proper direction. She registered a couple of years ago. She's waiting. She asks when. So many people need that, and I hope we'll move in that direction. Yeah, we already have this like feeling. Okay, it's the observation that this is an important topic for a healthcare system, definitely.
But probably it's not prioritized in the healthcare system in Ukraine, and therefore it seemed to us a proper thing to jump into this story and to switch that from the normative and formal into like human level and into the level of trustworthy relationship between doctors and patients. Well, actually, now I'm going to be really banal about challenges I would like to ask. What are the key challenges for forming this confidentiality ethics in the field of healthcare in Ukraine? Well, before coming to challenges, I would like to mention how this topic started for me personally, because it's also Nastya doesn't often say about that. but she's been working in one organization where, well, and he was saying that, yeah, we won't tell about that. We won't. Okay, so they had to have a HIPAA certification, American certification on confidentiality. So American norms on the confidentiality of medical information. So she came up to me, like testing, education, all of the stuff. And she came to me and she is saying that there is such a thing like HIPAA. Look, and then something turned on in my mind and like confidentiality. Well, there is such thing, like in healthcare, because you don't really think about that when you're working. We were not that much taught about that in university. Well, we were taught, but not that much. So this is where, for me personally, this story has started. As for the challenges, well, the challenges, there's a lot of them, I guess. But the biggest one is lack of understanding of this need from the patients. So this is the case, probably the only case, one of not many, when we are acting, well, not always based on the needs of our patients. Well, I would say that it's, in order to do that faster, if you ask the average patient, like, do you have such a problem? The patient will say, like, nope, I don't have such a problem. Well, there was like bad behavior at registration. They didn't give me the document. It's a problem. Confidentiality, I don't know. Yeah, I've been discussing that in a team. When you're sitting somewhere in the corridor, yeah, and someone is going out and is saying like Zastavnyi, yeah, it's not okay, right? But have you ever thought about that? That it's not okay. But when you see, so now you will think about that. You will sit in a line and somebody will call you according to your surname and you will say like, why? Why do you say my surname out loud for the whole corridor, like for everyone to hear? So there's a lot of such things. When we started working on the topic, well, actually, with the whole our team, we started seeing this. And those are very interesting cases. I will not mention certain cases. I will tell. I will. Yeah. But without the proper names, okay? Yeah, sure. Well, for example, we started discussing that in a team and our administrator, well, she just started, we have like printer Wi-Fi and like there are some conclusions printed out that we are giving to our like patients almost always. And she started getting those things and turning them upside down. And we are saying like, what are you doing? And she says like, well, for the diagnosis not to be on top. This is something elementary, but it shows your attitude to a person and respect to their diagnosis, like respect to the person as such, that we were saying like, Christina, it's cool. And now we are seeing this. We see these small details, even like you need to go out of the room and take something, right? Like, wait for me for a minute. Yeah. But on my screen, I have a schedule. Yeah, I need to close my monitor. So some small things. We are not saving any like printed papers because, you know, in some institutions, they are collecting informed consents, for example, and consent for processing personal data. But these consents for processing personal data are on the table with personal data. Yeah. And you start like when you dive deeper into this, you start thinking of it. I will add about one more challenge because we are collecting in-depth interviews from doctors, nurses, spoiler. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. Let us share. Yeah, so those who agree to give the interview, most probably they are somewhere from our bulb. And thank you so much for your interviews, those who gave those. But we also need people from the different, well, I don't know, like not from our bulb, and they don't agree to give the interview. So if you're watching us right now and you're ready to give anonymous interviews, please write me in private messages. We will be very happy and grateful. That's about doctors, nurses, administrators, registrators, managers. We will be very, very grateful because that will help all the Ukrainians, because based on that, we will do something. What if our bulb is watching us? Then invite your colleagues if you know that they can be invited for those interviews, because the information will be very valuable for us indeed. Thank you very much, Nastya, for the story about Christina, because it is highlighting another moment which is important. When we are talking about confidentiality, are we talking about the doctors. Well, no, confidentiality, like when we are conducting that, yeah, we are mentioning not just nurses and everything, but a person who has any access to all the data. So the person who's working in your medical information system, when medical information system is kind of not working, you're saying like, look, something is like uploading, or the person is saying, I will join you there. Do they see the surname of the patient? Or maybe this is a driver who is like taking the tests, etc. Does he see the surnames on those tests, etc.? So these are things that we are not paying attention to most often. Well, we know that there is certain confidentiality, there is certain legislation. People say that, yeah, we know that there's a law. What kind of law? We don't know. What is the punishment? Well, the punishment is but serious. What kind of punishment? Yeah. And also these interviews show that people know about the existence of this law, and no one is not disseminating anybody's information on purpose. So this is like Ihor mentioned, information security breach. Yeah. So these are some cases. Well, somebody has told about this information on purpose, but most information is disseminated not because the doctor or somebody else wants to harm another person, but because of these small things. Mostly like nurses, doctors, they are good people. They won't do anything like to do your bad. Otherwise, they won't have worked in this field. They want to do something good, but these breaches, they are happening because of some small details that we're not paying attention to. Our task is to find, to detect them, to systematize, and to teach them how to pay attention to this, just like we are paying attention. Thank you. Now we are on the level of not systematization, but seeing this, and we've conducted a huge, like a whole dozen of interviews. So maybe out of those interviews, you have some stories, some cases about like where these narrow moments are happening, where there is breach of confidentiality. Yeah, and first, more about cases, Nastya. I would like to tell about like general opinion, okay? But I would like to say that people are somehow afraid of talking about that, and it's like a taboo. Everybody knows about that, but they don't really want to talk about that, even though we are saying that your interviews will be confidential and your videos are confidential. Yeah, but people still don't want to talk about that. When I was asking managers, they are saying like, no, 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 everything is fine, everything is great. That's it, like briefly, as brief as possible. Nothing's happening, everything is perfect, etc. So my general opinion is that people don't want to talk about that at all. Like to get the manager in order to conduct the interview, and even more like from municipal sector, well, not even municipal sector, it doesn't matter what kind of sector it is, it's just like the fantastic, something unreal. But still we are collecting data, and as of now what I am having, and the biggest gaps that are happening in small communities, that is when a tiny number of medical workers, like one doctor in a village, for example. So then, yeah, this is happening this way. You're living in a community, and there are like the rules of the game are a bit different than in a big city, just like Kyiv. Because in the village, like they are saying, why did Petrina come to you? You gave her some new medicine, give me the new medicine, etc. So in these communities, we found the biggest gap because it's hard to stick confidentiality there. Because if the person is going to the doctor, then everybody can see that. If the person is going to the doctor and is holding somewhere like the side, it means that she has some pain, like etc. And everybody's asking why she has those pains, etc. And most often, this information disclosure is because there are like few people in the room, like doctor and nurse, for example. It's already the violation of certain confidentiality, and there are institutions where two doctors at the same time are seeing patients, but the patients are sitting back to back. Well, it's weird, but there are some institutions with lack of premises and in details in small things, you know. It doesn't happen like the doctor will show the photo and saying that this is my patient Petro with like high blood pressure. No, but these are the details that we are still starting, like we are still trying to see that. Yeah, you know, we are just like some kind of organization, like please write this, and your personal stories are very important. Personal data. Yeah, just bring your personal data and personal stories on the reverse side. So about the things that you're mentioning right now in cases, to a great extent, it's about, well, lack of understanding what confidentiality is, and then about those things like in the same room back to back. Well, these are some organizational issues, and maybe also there are some systemic issues that are unhelpful in terms of confidentiality. Yes, systemic things, a lot of those. Well, any that you can just imagine on this planet, like giving the data of patients among any institutions, document to the like kindergarten, university. Why does university have to know the results of my like X-ray? Like, what does it have to do with my university? Yeah, why medical examination of certain professions like medical stuff are mandatory? Can we have like forced medicine? What is this? And why the results like of the test of my throat is important for my employer? So those are the things that require some editing from top level. Another case, we had different cases that we've heard during this. I cannot mention them because they are confidential, but altogether with that, those are any transmission of information between institutions, medical institutions as well, from the primary care to stationary, from the Center of Blood Transfusion, Center for Public Health, what is very interesting, by the way, because if in some centers of control and prevention of diseases, there are some newsletters like these patients have pediculosis, and like they are sending the list of patients with pediculosis. Like, why? I don't get it. And those are big systemic things, and people are not paying attention to that like for years. So if you have such cases, please tell us of those, because now we have the opportunity, thanks to the project, thanks to you, thanks to Daryna, who is like putting a lot of effort and everything in the world. Now it is possible to see that and to fix that. Yeah, and thanks to Anastasia Khodan, who is working on that a lot. I would like to mention another thing. Recently in one institution, well, due to the fact that we are working on that, you are noticing this, and it's just horrible. It's just like when we started studying about mental health and started noticing that, same with this. So recently I just stopped the examination. I asked the patients to sit and on the speed of 80. I was rushing on a car to one of the institutions of our community to find the responsible person because there was such security breach. I won't mention neither the security breach nor the organization, but I said, I am asking you, this is unacceptable. These are personal data. Never do that ever again. And they were saying like, oh, we are so grateful. Thank you. So the thing is that they did not pay attention to it. It's not about bad people, not about bad orders or like bad institutions. That is about like, we need to pay attention to this. Yeah, and like plus minus, it is really hard to do that because, well, it's like, yes, indeed, what do we do with that? So on the stage of this detection, later on, we are going to systematize that, and we will try to understand like where are those like narrow places and what can we do with that. So maybe you can share some ideas of what will happen next. Yeah, maybe you will share what's gonna happen next. I don't know. We will be really mysterious, I guess. So I've been mentioning that typically we start with audit, with whatever, but we never make the research for the sake of research because we have an aim of trying to change situation around confidentiality. And here I think that we've started doing that because we are already directing attention to some things that, well, we didn't pay attention to that earlier on, but from the things that we are reading in the literature, well, the mandatory part is teaching medical and non-medical specialists, as it was mentioned by Nesta already, because like this quite narrow approach that confidentiality is responsibility of a doctor, and we would like to change this understanding and to expand that significantly. We are gonna look for those interesting approaches, formats, and content of the education that will correspond those results of the research that we will conduct, at the same time taking into account those systemic organizational challenges we are considering interaction with the institution and development of policies and procedures that will be favorable for preserving confidentiality. So as a matter of fact, the long-term aim that we've got is to take this confidentiality from formal approach into a real-life practice. And we will do that when detecting, understanding better, because, well, I don't know, I think you will agree that when we were getting into the topic, we realized that, yeah, it's important, but where is the core of it, right? We are still on the stage of examining this. So it would be really cool to have some practices, like the practice of like being caring to a child. Like they get some award that they are doing good job in this. So if maybe we would have had some practices that all the practices here are for your confidentiality, etc., etc., and patient, any person can choose like, yeah, I want to get my treatment here. I want my child to come here because this is kind of like the equality mark. So if we will have that one day, it would be perfect. Yeah, and it would be even better for all the medical practitioners to get this award, and it will be just great. So this never happens, but we can hope. Yeah, I would say that it's a wonderful thesis for the end. But as far as you said that this cannot happen, no, this can happen, and I am dreaming of it to come true one day. Maybe we can record some podcast because we have still lots of things to talk about, but we have no time. So yeah, there's a lot of stories, and as soon as we're saying that there is just 20 minutes in order to highlight in the topic, to share some stories and to share the insights with you, those that we are now burning with as a team and working on confidentiality, because this is a wonderful stage when you are collecting interviews and each interview is bringing something new and you are just excited of all of that. Well, we will continue, we will share the results and the insights, and we will not omit this topic. And thank you very much, Anna and Nastya and everyone, because you expanded our team of those who are ambassadors of this topic, and we are still expanding this topic, so we stay on touch in this regard. Thank you very much. We have literally few important things to mention. I guess we have to draw conclusions, and I'm not really ready to do that. So if our team wants to intervene at some moment, then you're welcome. I'll be grateful. We were planning this as the conference of achievements and further steps, and I think we succeeded doing lots of things in order to share the achievements, not only from our point of view, but also from the point of view of our partners. So I personally, for myself, have heard some new things that I want to take with me and work with them. Well, for myself, some conclusions and summing up on many issues. Well, that these were different from one to the other discussion. People are important. And it is important not just to speak in terms of words about people, but to reflect this value in your everyday practices and just to work on that, to practice this respect to people's dignity. And this is about like each thing that we mentioned today. We are so grateful for you to be here with us today. Maybe I'm running ahead, but thank you very much for being as last year and this year, 2024. We want to work with all of you further on because this interaction partnership is inspiring.
And wonderful final words. And the only thing I just want to say that we managed to highlight everything we discussed, you know, with those we had offline, online as well, because at our meetings beyond streams, you know, we're discussing so many details in various formats, and we try to understand better what are their needs, like where can we fit in to help within the scope of the project, with those activities and with those indicators we have. And today's discussion, I think, again for us as for a project team, gave us some understanding, like that we hear each other. We, of course, we don't ignore the external challenges, and the products we make together are super valuable. And you get really some benefit out of these. You grow, you evolve. It may not be so tangible, but you later give tangible results to yourself and to your teams, okay? not so many examples maybe, but I guess today, if we mention it today, from our educator, from our colleague, we got information. We, as project, we spoke of this international conference with a deadline, and they applied to it. You know, they saw it on our account, and they already are fluent in English. They already know how to improve research skills. Their abstracts were selected, and they have scholarship for a trip, and they will do it. So it's such a multi-component project, as it seems to me. And I think that current discussions, as we plan it, it was hard to grasp everything. 55 sub-projects or activities. It really is impossible to cover. But we're so happy that we're successful in it, and we really want you to send us messages and letters and emails, please. If you find some new ways to use that. I do hope that in 2025 we'll have another meeting at a similar conference, and I'll give you an announcement. We'll have some new, not very typical things. Okay, summer school, Ukrainian-Swiss summer school on resilience, human resilience, and healthcare system resilience, and healthcare employees resilience. End of July, start of August. Please check the webinar that Yulia Martynenko held on how to write applications to make sure that your application is selected. Purely for medical educators, but maybe for everyone engaged in education, to launch a series of webinars focused on very specific topics, assessing students, formative, summative lectures, how to draft these. We'll have foreign speakers. Very short lectures, but it seems to me that if it is successful, and everything we do is successful, so for the next conference will boast, you know, we'll show off. Yeah, I'll stop at that. I'll stop here, and this is something we don't mention in 2024, but it's for 2025. On the screen, you can see QR code. Please tell us using that if this format is satisfying, if it's beneficial, because it's an experiment, you know, and we worried a lot if it goes well, if this multi-level structure of the project and discussions, if we manage to like squeeze it in one day. So we really rely on your feedback, and we want you to have a nice evening, safe evening, first of all. Have a safe ending of the year, and I think we'll meet each other in 2025, and we'll resume the development. So in 2025 is gonna be easier, of course. I know that. We all know that. Thank you, and have a nice evening.